Hi, welcome back to another episode of the Global Trial Accelerators podcast. Today, we are with Dr. Martin Schiller. Dr. Schiller is a scientist, entrepreneur, and professor with a PhD in biochemistry. He is the executive director of the Nevada Institute of Personalized Medicine and a professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He is recognized for his pioneering research in genetics, bioinformatics, and biologic drug discovery with over 90 scientific papers and about $30 million in NIH funding. So Martin, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Julio. Thanks for the invite. Nice to be here today.
Excellent. All right, Martin. So let's get started talking about your personal and professional journey. How is it that you got to where you are? How is it that you got to 90 scientific papers, founding a company, raising $31 million in NIH funding? I'm sure there's an intriguing story behind that.
It's a really long story because it's, my life story. I think my family, was interested in entrepreneurship, generationally. And, I ended up starting a small company when I was, just a kid. I was only 14 years old.
Wow.
And I've had
amazing
startup. Yeah, I've had little startup businesses along the way. But, in college, I really developed kind of just a passion for, biology and biomedicine. And, that kind of defined me. And the business startups I had were in separate areas. Like at one point we made, yeast kits and cultures for the microbrew revolution. So, they were never really connected, but eventually they connected in this last company that's the company for the rest of my life, which is called Heligenics. The interesting part of the journey is, I became a professor and, worked at, several institutions and, did a bit of teaching and research along the way. And I would say that, it wasn't until I was in my mid 50s that, I had really developed a strong scientific premise that would resonate in the business world. And, I was pretty excited to kind of merge my entire skill set into one venture, which became Heligenics. So I think that's kind of the overview of the foundation of my journey.
Well, we're going to speak about Heligenics later in more detail, Martin, and why or how or the context behind why is one of the first biotech startups in the state of Nevada and Las Vegas. I'm very curious about it because you don't hear much about biotech innovation in Nevada. But anyway, before we get to that point, let's talk about trends. What do you see happening in your space that are relevant? What things are happening? What trends do you see that are relevant to the discussion today, Martin?
Yeah. I would say that the space that we're working in is in, developing kind of a new approach for discovery of new biologic drugs. And I think the main shift in this space over the past few years is, I'm going to say, the promise of AI. So how is artificial intelligence going to change what's going on? And I think this is, it's an area that pharma is investing in. And it's also an area that's moving, so fast. But the one thing to keep in mind is, of the hundreds of companies that exist in this space already, there is no drug on the market. that was invented with AI. And I think Recursion has one that's in phase 2 trials, but that's as far as we've gotten. So it's a premise that's not as proven out as much as like neutralizing antibodies or even RNA therapies. So yeah, I think it's still going to be interesting, and I think we have a role to play in this development as well. But it's not specifically what our company does.
Okay, so let's talk about your company, Heligenics. So I understand from my research is transforming generic diagnostic and drug discovery, and the goal is to improve drugs and diagnostics by understanding how gene mutations affect health. And you guys have a breakthrough technology, the GigaAssay. Am I correct? Am I pronouncing that correctly? GigaAssay.
Yeah,
It can
GigaAssay,
test.
like a gigabyte.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, gigabyte. Yeah, GigaAssay can test tens of thousands of genetic variations all at once. So anyway, I know it's all a complex terminology or language, but please make it easier for the audience to understand what is it that Heligenics does and why is it a breakthrough technology, Martin?
Yeah, sure. So just, the real super short version is we kind of adapted this approach where we barcode molecules. And because we can barcode so many DNA molecules, we could test a whole bunch at once without separating the molecules. And this isn't really, I think we're the only company doing this in a commercial setting.
Okay.
And what that enables us to do is something really unique in the industry because, historically for small compounds like aspirin or warfarin, basically Pfizer introduced in the early 80s an approach where you could use robotics and computers to screen libraries of 2 million plus compounds. And so they took us from like screening hundreds of compounds to millions. So you're looking at so many more possibilities that we started selecting better compounds and learning a lot more about how to go about it. And the whole industry adopted this approach, and it's been persistent ever since the early 80s. But at about the same time or shortly thereafter, the world started using biologics. So, the early ones were like using insulin or interferons. And but now it's antibodies, and there's about 300 biologic drugs on the market, and there's I think over 700 investigational ones in process. And the thing about the biologics is you're kind of mimicking what the body was already doing. So these drugs are turning out to be very effective. And in the last year, half the new approvals by the FDA were for biologics and not small compounds. So it's the growing area. Now, the problem, biologics sound great, but there is this problem. We're really just picking a molecule out of the body and going with it, for the most part, out of the box. So you're relying that nature has optimized insulin to do its job perfectly. Well, that's fine, but we want to use insulin in a slightly different way now because we don't want it to just have a half-life of 5 minutes in your blood. We want to have a long-lasting effect because we're using it to treat a diseased situation. And this is true for most biologics. So, it turns out, God, we've been working on insulin for about 100 years, but now they have versions of insulin that last, multiple weeks. But that took a lot of playing around and tinkering over a long time to find specific mutations that could be introduced into insulin that give it these very favorable properties. And so this is kind of a limitation, because do we want to spend 40 years to find these variants and improve upon all these great biologics that have already been made? And the answer is no, but there hasn't been approach until Heligenics. So I'll correct you, we're actually doing hundreds of thousands of mutants in one experiment now, not tens of thousands. So if we can test, 250,000 potential changes to insulin in one experiment and then pick out the best ones to go with, that seems to be a really good approach to improve upon what's already been done, or to create new first-in-class, best-in-class drugs, because now we can look at such a wide breadth, and we're not just testing them conventionally for binding as a first step. We're actually testing them in a specific bioactivity that's relevant to the disease pathology and treatment. So we're screening against that and testing, 250,000 different molecules. And this, we think this is going to be, over time, just transformative to the industry, as Pfizer was with the high content screening approach that it developed in the 80s. And so I think this is, we've already produced a number of new exciting lead compounds. And most recently, we've adapted our approach to take existing biologics and came up with a creative way to convert them into oral or topical therapies, or to have much longer half-lives in the blood, so they can have, you need less injections, can have better compliance, and so forth. So there are lots of other ways our tech can be used, but we're focusing on what I just described going forward. We have this great capability with genetic diagnostics, but we've decided, for commercial reasons, to focus on the biologics, because we think that's going to be the biggest bang for the buck in the world.
I see. So I understand you guys at Heligenics collaborate with research institutions, pharmaceutical companies, clinical labs, and you aim to bring the power of precision medicine to more people. So precision medicine, I mean, that's kind of a hot trend, isn't it?
You're breaking up. We got some bad internet.
Precision medicine, Martin. Can we talk about that bigger trend in the industry? What is precision medicine and where is it going?
Yeah. So I would say that there's kind of two terms that have slightly different meaning. There's personalized medicine and precision medicine. So I think, personalized medicine is an idealistic state at this point, where that, for any one person, we're going to come in and make a therapy that's designed just for you. I think that might be very long term. It's rather costly. The FDA has only approved about 2,000 drugs in all time. So it's not like these things are going to spin up overnight. Now, precision medicine is more what's finding its way into practice, but I would say there are commercial barriers for it to enter the market in a big way. The business case is not as strong for the insurers and the drug developers, but it is probably long-term a better approach. And so the general idea is, if we make a medicine, maybe it works better in a certain population than other populations, whether that's defined by gender or ethnicity or a particular biomarker. But whatever the stratification is can we take medicines and target them better to people that are going to respond? And, it sounds great. And there are examples where it's working quite interestingly. But remember, for a drug company, now that medicine you make is only going to get to maybe 20% of the people it was when you started. Yeah. So the numbers changed, and it makes it less desirable. So we do have to find a better way to incentivize companies to bring these to market. Now, Heligenics has made an incredible precision medicine, but our difficulty is how do we, get this to market, because it's not as exciting to investors, I would say, as developing a new drug. And so here's what we did at Heligenics, and I think there are examples in the clinic already, but this is what's I think exciting for us is we took a gene that causes breast and ovarian cancer called HER2, and this is one of the key cancer driver genes. And there's actually about 7 drugs made to it, but they all work differently in different people and are used for different clinical purposes. So how do you decide? And the same problem exists in rheumatological diseases where, sometimes you have to just do trial and error over a long time to find what works. I think in the rheumatological diseases, the average time for a person to find the right therapy is like 10 years.
Wow.
Well, yeah, it can
you don't have 10 years
as
a patient.
Yeah. Like if you have cancer, you want a little quicker response time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how do you choose the medicine? So we used our GigaAssay, and we identified all the existing mutations that are known to cause cancer. But then in the GigaAssay, we identified about 100 new ones that are cancer causing. But then we tested these against each of the drugs. So we did the same experiment in the presence, and we used 3 of the 7 drugs to start. And when we compare those data sets, the difference is we're identifying all the mutations that cause resistance to that drug in that gene. And that's pretty valuable information because
that's amazing.
What you can now do is, if you took a biopsy from a breast cancer specimen, you could sequence just this key driver gene and then determine which of the 3 drugs would be responsive and which ones would be resistant. And it wouldn't be like you're just testing 3 or 4 mutations like in many clinical diagnostics now. We're testing all of them. So, you get all kinds of mutations that turn up in people, not just the few that end up getting studied. But in our case, we have all this information and we have it in advance. So you can now use this data set to pick which of the 3 drugs would be best suited for that patient. And I think that's precision medicine. It might even be personalized.
Yeah.
Right. It's personalized because everyone has different mutations. And so we're actually doing it on a patient by patient basis in this case. And we're, even though it's not our priority, we're still exploring potential relationships to try to bring this to market. But it's one of the things as a scientist that makes me a little sad because, we've had this for a couple of years now. and our first license arrangement didn't work out. And I really want to see this, get to market. And it's a great proof of concept for this area of precision medicine.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about the business model of Heligenics. So I understand you collaborate with different stakeholders, research institutions, pharmaceutical companies, clinical labs, etc. How do people find you? How do they get engaged with you? Is it a fee for service? How does it work? How do you work with them? How do you guys generate revenue?
Yeah. So what we're looking for is we're looking for partners in every disease area, and we've created a number of therapeutics just to show what we're capable of, but that are also useful clinically. And what we want is we want a partner to come in and say, look, we're interested in this disease area. We want to license an existing drug or partner with you to create a new drug in this space or to improve upon one of our existing drugs and form like a joint venture company where this will be the place where the drug lives, and we'll share in developing it and the spoils. And why we want that relationship is because we don't want to just do the first one with the partner. We want to long-term address that specific disease area. So we want to keep coming with new drugs. We recognize that we're not a company that does the downstream clinical testing or even the late-stage clinical studies or the manufacturing, but we're really good at the first part, the discovery phase. Mm-hmm. And so like our view is we shouldn't be partnering with one pharma company. We should be doing this with all of them, right? We should be working with everyone. And, I hope we achieve at least part of that, because I really think what we've built is going to be influential in the space. So yeah, that's our business model. And now in general, just so like if you have, pharma executives listening to your podcast or people from mid-sized pharma companies that would be interested in this sort of partnership, we basically have, we get a fee up front to build a new drug. And then we want, percent ownership in the company. Yeah. And, we want to be part of the downstream discovery process too. We want to be part of making new drugs for that company. So that's kind of the model we're working from. But we also have existing drugs where we're looking to form companies with partners now. And, we're starting to get our first few companies going, that are spinning off of Heligenics.
Excellent.
And, this is kind of our model going forward.
So there's traction already with your technology. You already have a few companies going.
Yeah. We have two that we've gotten going, but we have 3 more areas of assets that we're looking to find partners in. One is interferon alpha for treatment of refractory melanoma, for acute myeloid leukemia maintenance, and polycythemia vera. So we're looking for a partner to take those forward. And we've already found CRO partners that are going to do part of the work, but we need, some VC money to come in and preferably someone with subject matter expertise in the space. But we're recruiting that for these projects as well. We actually have an NIH grant to develop a new version of interferon beta for treating MS that is doesn't develop anti-drug antibodies, which is the limitation of this current first-line therapy. So that's a second area where we're looking to form a new business with someone. And then we have a project ongoing where we're creating oral versions of the incretin biologics for weight loss and type 2 diabetes. And so we think that that's, an extremely hot market.
Yeah.
And we think it's a good place where we can, it's a place for us to really show off our skills, where we could go in to a market that, it's people have been working on these therapies for 50 years in this market, but we're pretty confident we can go in there and produce more efficacious therapeutics with our technology, because we're examining a much broader space than has been looked at to bring these current biologics to market. And I'm talking about things like Mounjaro, Zepbound, tirzepatide, Wegovy, Ozempic, that family of drugs. So we are just revising all our materials and going out into the world probably in the next month or two to be more aggressive with finding the partners than we have been to this point. We've really just relied on our network to this point, but because we have some leaders in these fields, it's worked for us. But we're trying to grow the company to be more impactful.
Yes, that brings me to my next question, Martin, before we end the show. It's about the ecosystem in Nevada, in Las Vegas more specifically. What's going on in Las Vegas? I mean, you don't hear much about biotech companies like yours in that part of the country.
Yeah. Well, we really didn't have a university driving this in the city, so it wasn't it was attractive from a tax perspective and a cost perspective, but not a talent perspective.
Okay.
So we had companies come in, like Spectrum Biopharma came in and put their headquarters here for the tax benefits, but it really wasn't. It was a desert, a biotech desert.
In all ways, I mean, geographic desert and no talent, no funding, no ecosystem like you have in San Diego, Boston, or San Francisco. Yeah.
That's right. And I'm not going to claim we have one at this point, but UNLV has really stepped up. They now have a medical school. I'm the director of the Institute of Personalized Medicine there. We're bringing in people. And then there's, I kind of got involved with a few of my colleagues about 15 years ago, and we started helping mentor people on how to get their projects funded at NIH. So we helped grow the NIH research portfolio for the university. And then once it got to a certain size, we started attracting recruits from outside. So actually, UNLV now has a really rapidly growing and exciting research environment. So now we have talent. And we're, some of the community leaders are now coming together and trying to figure out, what are the, we brought in consultants with the city to figure out, what are we missing in an ecosystem, and to come up with strategies to how to build it. Now, from my perspective, I'm kind of like a road paver out here with this, right? Because I'm one of the first biotech companies coming out of the university. And, there is a couple of huge benefits I found about being here. So if your company grows up on the coast in one of these, meccas of biotech, those ecosystems are designed for you to lose a controlling interest, by the time you get to the Series A phase, right? So, your vision, is geared towards an exit.
Yeah.
That's really not my strong interest. I want to build something that keeps building. Um,
Hmm.
and so I've managed to grow the company to quite a good, influential size and retained a controlling interest in the company. And the reason is it can be done here for a lot less money. I don't have to go pay San Francisco rents.
Yeah.
Um, I the salaries are, we pay competitive salaries, but out here, for the base services, they're less costly.
Sure.
And now I think with AI, and agents that are going to take
Yes.
over some of
Yeah.
those types of jobs,
Yeah.
I think that you can get that there are advantages here. And the truth is if you have an interesting technology, people don't mind moving here. This is a fabulous place to live.
Hmm.
Everyone thinks of the strip and gambling, but
Yeah.
I've lived around, and I wish I moved here earlier in my life. It's good living, you know, in a lot of different ways. So, um,
Yeah. That's what I hear. I have a
and I
good
think
friend.
the
No, I was going to say that that's what I
important
hear
is,
from friends. I have a friend who is also a scientist. He lives in Reno, Nevada. He talks wonders about the place. Yeah.
yeah, it's good living up there too. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They each
All
have
right.
their own aspects. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All
Yeah.
right, Martin. I think we are close to the end of the show. Any final words of wisdom? Any final thoughts to share with the audience before we conclude?
No, I'm just thanks, Julio. I'm glad I could come and share a little bit of our story with you, and I appreciate you reaching out, and looking forward to see what happens.
All right, Martin. Good luck with your future projects, and hopefully, this technology that Heligenics has finds the right partners and really make an impact in the world and benefits patients. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Thank you, Julio.